This is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Jenny.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I'm an alcoholic. Hi. Oh my God. Oh, the pirates are scaring me. Oh my God. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Let's see. First of all, I just want to congratulate the chip takers and the newcomers, everyone. And there's no birthday people, which kind of sucks, but you know, whatever. Let's see. Oh God, where do I start? I have a long time to talk, Jesus. Okay. I am going to talk about a little bit about what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. Let's see. My sobriety date is August 7th, 2003, and that was not when I first came into AA. I am definitely a relapser. I was called a retread. So that doesn't have to be your experience, but if that is your experience, I welcome you, and I welcome you back if you're coming back, or if you're back and you didn't identify. I definitely did not identify a lot of the times that I came back. I was very ashamed to stand up as a newcomer. So anyways, that was my experience. So what it was like for me, I was born in Orange County. And I was raised in Oregon and also in Northern California in San Francisco. Welcome from San Francisco. And my parents are both police officers as I was growing up. And, oh yeah. And so my dad was a sergeant, and he used to go down and work with people down at the methadone clinic. And he was he knew everything about drugs. Like, that was his deal. There was no he was just very hip to drugs, and he knew the deal, and there was no getting away with anything with him. So my mom, on the other hand, was a little bit more lackadaisical with things. She was a little more whatever. So anyways, at the first, my childhood, to be honest with you, going back doing inventory after inventory after inventory, I'm one of those people that I have the worst memory even to this day. I cannot tell you anything about my entire childhood. I remember in Oregon we had a goat. We had some strawberries. We used to grow, shut up. We used to grow my dad shot our chicken. We had a chicken, my dad shot it. We had a rooster, my dad shot it. We had a lot of guns in the house. My dad had an arsenal of guns. My dad had guns and my mom had drugs. So that was that's all I remember about my childhood. So, and once in a while, they'd usually chase each other with the guns, but it wasn't very pleasant. Anyways, so long story short, my experience is that when I got to about the age of 14 and being in, I think it was maybe my first year in high school, people were smoking pot, whatever. And that I decided to try smoking pot. And I remember it was after school in the Coke can or whatever it was, the Coke can thing or whatever, and it was just harmless. Oh, thank you. And it wasn't a big deal. Everyone was doing it. And so I did that, and we would go to class stoned or whatever, and a couple of my friends would do acid, and a couple of my girlfriends would do speed because they wanted to lose weight or whatever, and that it was just whatever. Everyone did that, and it wasn't a big deal. Or at least all my friends did. So when I was about 14 and a half, I went to the doctor. I don't remember what happened, but something happened where I had some kind of ailment. And I ended up going to the doctor, and they gave me a script for, I think at that time it was Vicodin. And they gave me a script for Vicodin. And I can't tell you that it was wonderful or fabulous. I can't tell you what that first feeling was like. I know some people can tell you what day they had their first drink and what second it was and what minute and what it felt like. I can't remember anything. I can just tell you that I knew it was Vicodin back then, and I knew that I took it every day. And from the first time I got my first prescription, I just remembered going to doctors and lying and flirting with my doctors and having my doctor's home number, his cell phone, his pager, knowing where he lived, and calling him all the time and going to every pharmacy. And this was before I even had a driver's license. And my mom would be like, can you go pick up this prescription? You can have half of them, and then and she'd be giving me her car to drive. I wasn't even 16, but she didn't want to be bothered. So That was like what happened. And for me, my parents, just to back up a little bit, when I was growing up, my parents, there was like a lot of booze in the house. And there was a lot of like partying, and there was a lot of like, fights. And like my dad would get in fights with all of like his guy friends, and there'd be blood, and they'd be going to the hospital and whatever. And, there's like a lot of like violence. And so, I like saw alcohol from a very young age as like dangerous. And, and also when I was in high school, my dad, like, stocked the whole garage refrigerator with alcohol for me. And he was like, here, I don't want you to be, like, out running around trying to get alcohol and getting in trouble, so here's alcohol for you. And I think because he, like, gave me alcohol, I was, like, not interested in it. So I was like, okay, whatever. And so I definitely did drink, don't get me wrong, at this point. But for whatever reason, I think because the Vicodin, I could, you couldn't smell it, and I could take it and go to school, and like the teachers didn't notice, and not like my friends that were on acid and in class, and they had to like, they got asked to leave the class because they were acting really weird. Like I would just be a little bit like tired looking or whatever. So, anyways. So that was my experience, and that just kind of, I think I just like maintained or whatever through high school, and I always had this kind of. I don't know, I always just kind of like felt different and had this personality of like I didn't really have to, like the rules didn't apply to me. Like the rules that applied to everyone else didn't apply to me. And I would pull up to school, like when I did get my driver's license, I would pull up and I would park like on the red zone in front of school, like we had like a red, like a, do not park zone in front of school, and I'd park there every day. Like, and I was late. I would come like third period, and I'd park on the I would get the kids for carpool. I'd drop them off at school, and I'd be like, bye. And I would come back, like, and they would tell their parents on me. And I would come back like 3 hours later, and I'd park on the red zone, and the principal would call my mom and be like, Jenny's always late to class. Like, my mom would never call back first, but like after they get her like 6 months later, they'd be like, Jenny always is late to school, and they'd be like, well, how do you know? And they'd be like, well, she parks on the red zone every day and she gets a ticket. And then of course my parents would get the tickets like every day. And so they wanted to take my keys and like lock them in the safe at school, like all this stupid shit, which they did. And then of course they got a spare set. And then my dad took the starter plug out of my car, which I got another one. Then he put my car on blocks. I mean, just like all this shit to like, because I would always like, I would always like be doing like, oh, starter plug, okay, Jeep.com, like how do you get another starter plug? Like how do you do this? How do you do that? I need a spare set. Jeep, how do I get a spare? It's like I was always like, whatever. And, and then like graduation came, and I was, doing the Vicodin thing, and I was always like, oh yeah, I'm the designated driver. I was telling my parents, I'm the designated driver. I don't drink, and it was like, mind you, I have like, 4 bottles of pills in my purse, but I was like, that was my thing. I was like totally lying to myself, and everyone saying that I was like the designated driver for everyone. And my parents like, oh, she's so good. And then I remember like at the end, I was like, oh, my friends are on speed. It's so bad, Mom. I'm totally, got my shit together. And I seriously never even, I didn't even know I had a locker. I never had a backpack. I don't even know how I passed high school. And I remember on like the day when we went to graduation, I remember going to like all my teachers, and I bought my computer teacher like a chia pet, and I put it in like a cup that said like #1 teacher, and I gave it to her, and I'm like, and she's like, whatever, just get out of here. And she gave me some credits, and I went to my economics teacher, and I was like, what can I do? Then my art teacher, I was like, just give me one more chance. And she's like, okay, make a project for me. She like gave me like one, she's like, whatever you get on this project is your grade for the whole semester, whatever. And I made like some stupid project with, magazines or whatever. And so I passed somehow. You know how we do that? We like just make it like the last second. It's like the anxiety and like the, it's like we fuck off, pardon my language. And like the last second, it's like the door's closing, and it's like, we skid by. So I skidded by, and then, then I get out of high school, I'm going, and then I get in a car accident, of course. I'm sure I had a couple before that, but this was one where I actually, went to the doctor, and I had, back issues or whatever, who knows at that point. And so then they put me on Soma, which, so anyways, the only reason I'm just talking about that is because Soma was really, really, really dangerous for me, and Soma put me in a coma more than once. Soma put me on respirators in critical care for a few days, a few times, and anyway, so at this point, once we got on Soma and we were doing that, my parents kind of had a wake-up call, and I ended up at 20, I was 21 at this point. I had moved to Canada. I was living with my first boyfriend at this point, my first like long-term boyfriend. I was living in Canada, and I remember coming home, and I just couldn't even drive at this point on the on the muscle relaxers and this, and I was drinking on top of that. I just couldn't even function. I had no desire to function. I just remember I didn't want to live on this planet. I just had no desire to live past the age of 21. I just didn't. And I didn't like life. I don't know why. I just had no desire to be a part of the human race, and I didn't really care for people, and that was just my deal. So I just really loved opiates, and I loved alcohol, and I loved muscle relaxers. And I thought that if I wasn't harming anyone else, and I didn't know why people were like bothering me and like getting in my business, and why people were concerned about me. And like, who cares if I'm passing out in my pasta and passing out in my soup? And like, what the fuck, You guys are busy working. And, like, my parents were like workaholics or whatever, crazy. And it's like, if you guys are doing this, I'm an only child. Like, I don't have any siblings. Don't bother me. So, anyways, my parents. I remember at 21, my dad got me in the car and drove me down to the desert to rehab, and I told him, okay, it's all the drugs are gone, the stash is gone, let's go, fine, let's do this. And so we went down. I just remember the whole time I was like passed out in the car like this, and you're like that, and you're drooling on yourself, and your head's on the glass. And then I remember we got to Palm Springs, and my whole face was like, half my face was like sun, like just like tomato red. And of course I had the stash in the back of the car. We can't go to rehab without the stash in the car. So my dad dropped me off at rehab, left the car there to be serviced, because of course the car needed to be serviced. He left it there for some stupid reason. And then he flew back home to San Francisco. And so I went to rehab, and I went to my first AA meeting, and it was this big, huge hall of people. And they made me get up and read, and I had to read, and I like fucked up I'm like, sorry, cursing. And they made me read like autonomous or an anonymous or something, and I totally screwed up. I was so embarrassed. It was like 300 people staring at me, and I was like, I hate AA. Why are they trying to make me sober, whatever. And they didn't give me any detox meds, and I was taking so many pills at that time. It was just not good. And it was horrible. It was like 120 degrees or something. It was the middle of like July in Palm Springs, and I was walking around with a blanket on, and they gave us this clonidine patch, and I thought that if I kept having a new one, it would be like stronger. I had no idea at that time. It was like my first detox. So I kept ripping them off and throwing them in the pool so they couldn't like make me put it back on. And I'd go in like every day, and I'd be like, it fell off again. And so they had it like taped, like with 8 pieces of tape around me, and they're like, okay, it's not gonna fall off. I'm like, it fell off again, So anyways, that was terrible. I really don't even remember that much about it. I just remember going into the meeting, being embarrassed, and not hearing a thing. They showed us these slides of like, people's lungs and brains frying and all this stuff. And I just remember going, I'm 21, this is really stupid, and I'm okay. Like, this is not for me. And then on like my 27th day, they were like, it was like family weekend, and my mom comes in with like opium perfume and like hemp oil, and they're like, no, you can't have that here. It was like really strict one, like we couldn't even have sugar and stuff, and they're like, no. And then they were trying to like intervention on her, and then she's like, we gotta get you out of here. She's like, get in the car. And so my mom's like, my dad wasn't there, of course, and she's like, Dad, put your car here. She's like, I'm gonna get you. She's like, you get in your car and follow me home. And so I'm like popping pills. I mean, that was how it went. So, so then mind you, so then we get home, and then Dad's pissed, right? Because we're both loaded in the car, swerving, it's like, so that was pretty much how it went. Dad was like trying to manage. Dad's the Al-Anon, trying to manage. He's got the 2 crazy women, and, he did the best he could. So, then get back home, and it doesn't work. Get back home, and it doesn't work. I'm trying to, then it's to the next detox. And you go home, you try to manage, you do the pharmacy deal, do the alcohol thing, try to drive, it doesn't work. And then, I ended up with my first DUI. I think I was maybe like 6 months after I got out of that treatment center, I ended up with my first DUI. And I got possession at that point. I had possession, an intent to sell, possession of firearm, and a bunch of stuff on that one. And went to jail for, actually the second time. That was the first time was in high school. I forgot about that one. Anyways, yeah, so that was, I had a drunk in public when I was 15. I forgot. And anyways, that was when I wasn't drinking. That took like 3-4 steps to remember that one. I was like, oh shit, maybe I was drinking back then. Maybe I'm an alcoholic, not just an addict. Are they the same thing? Anyway, so I had the first DUI, and that was kind of my like first start of like awakening, like, oh wait, maybe I'm not so clever. Maybe maybe Daddy's not gonna be able to, like, his cop friends would always like let me off. They'd be like, yeah, Jenny's a little tipsy. We saw her like, walking or doing whatever. And I just remember sitting in the emergency room after the first one, and because my DUIs weren't like, oh, how cute, she's swerving. It was like she was driving 40 miles an hour and hit a stopped bus that was empty. Thank God. The bus was empty. But I was taking my 2 kittens that I just bought. That was my thing. I would buy animals. I would get animals. I would either like adopt them. Thank God they like check out people that are adopting animals now. It's probably because of me and other people like me. Because I'd be lonely because I couldn't have people around. I would use by myself. I wasn't like, oh, let's go clubbing. It was like some people. I was like, let's be in the apartment by ourselves in our like bathrobe for like 2 months. My dad would come over and be like, have you changed your clothes? Like, should we change your sheets? Like, how many pizza boxes do you have in your house? Like it was not glamorous. So, thank God I didn't have pharmacies that delivered in Northern California, because Jesus, I would have never left the house. I mean, to go to the pharmacy was like dressing up to go out, It was like, that was, I had to look presentable to go to the pharmacy. I was like, they know I haven't left the house in 2 weeks, and I'm, but anyway, so after the first DUI, then I got court mandated for, I think it was either 30 or 60 days to an inpatient facility, and I think I got my license taken away for 30 or 60 days, blah, blah, blah. And long story short, of course, that didn't work. So then second DUI, third DUI, no, it was not cute anymore to them. So at that point, I lost my license for, was it 6? I lost my license for 6 years. And three of those years, I had to have a breathalyzer on my car, which was really fun. And at that point, I was court mandated to a facility for a year. And this is after, mind you, when you put the detoxes and the rehabs together, I've been in 30 facilities already at this point. And then the last one I was court mandated to for a year. And at the day that I got court mandated to that one, and I'd never graduated facility, I was always kicked out for using or either for using or having drugs smuggled in and trying to use, or for doing, just for doing stupid shit. And the last one I was court mandated to for a year, and the day before I went in there, I got high right before I went to court, and the judge knew I was high, and he was not happy about it. And anyways, they mandated me for a year. I went to AA for a year, and I heard about it, and I've been going now. This is 10 years later now, and I had, heard the message in the rooms. I had seen the people, but I never worked the steps. I'd seen the steps on the wall, I'd seen the traditions on the wall, I'd heard the people, I'd seen the light in people's eyes, but I never really understood what was going on. And I thought, there is no way that I could ever go a day without using. I wasn't a binge drinker. I wasn't someone that, used once in a while after they got off work, had a drink. It was like I used from the moment, it wasn't even like the moment I got up in the morning. I used to get up at 3 o'clock. I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and start the spasmic colon and start the withdrawals. And I would have to use in the middle of the night, 7 in the morning, every hour. And, it just definitely progressed for me. And I thought there's absolutely no way I could ever go a day without using, so what is the point? So anyways, I went to this facility for a year, and and every time I was in treatment, I was always the one patient that would bitch so much they would let me be on Klonopin, because they were just so tired of hearing about it. They would just be like, just give her Klonopin, seriously. And then I would back over another patient's car, or I would do something, and they'd be like, get her out of here, we cannot deal. So finally, when I was in for a year, I actually did it, they detoxed me for I actually went to Daniel Friedman for the 12th time, and I was in there for 90 days detoxing. My liver, my Tylenol levels were so toxic they couldn't give me meds in there, so they had me in there. It was like 60 or 90 days, and they sent me to Cry Help. I AWOL'd out of there. They sent me back to Daniel Friedman, and then they just let me like sit in there till they could find a place that would take me for a year. At this point, treatment centers I had been in like 3 times wouldn't take me back, so it wasn't like easy to find a place. So after that, I ended up getting a year, and off just being dry, and I was miserable. There was a couple people that were in there with me, and they said like I just walked around like so unhappy. All I would do was read books about serial killers. That's all I had. I had like books on Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy, and like that's all I did. And it was so funny. They had a priest come over one day, and they're like, "We're gonna have someone come talk to you about spirituality." And I was like, "Fuck!" And they're like, "He's gonna come in your room and talk to us." I was like, "Please get him out of here." And they like made us go to church one day, and I was like, "Oh," I was just like so miserable and unhappy. I didn't want anything to do with anyone, and I was just really like not a happy person, and. So I got out of there. I used like the day I got out of there, and it didn't work for me. I had my breathalyzer. I went back up to Northern California. My dad's like, if you're gonna drink and use, do not drive. Like, just don't drive. So he like unhooked the breathalyzer. So the car doesn't work if you unhook the breathalyzer. You can't even drive. So he unhooked the breathalyzer. I couldn't drive. He had to like take me to work with me. I was like a child. I was like a 2-year-old. Like I couldn't even get my own job. Like I had to go to work with my dad, and I was like 27 years old. It was like really pathetic. And finally, I just, at this point, I'm like going, at this point it's progressed too. It's not just pills. At this point, it's heroin, it's cocaine, it's crack. It's, I've got a hole in my nose, I've got an ulcer, blah, 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 the deal. So, and, it's just definitely not getting any better. And it is, it's definitely progressive. So, and I was up in Northern California. It was after all these treatment centers, after all this AA. I just wasn't getting it. And then one day I just sat there, and I just, for whatever reason, I just had some kind of spiritual awakening. I was like driving home one day, and I just like looked up and saw this like tree there's like this tree up where I live, and I grew up in Danville. It's in Northern California, and there's like this tree up on Mount Diablo. And I just saw this tree, and for whatever reason, this tree was like my little spiritual awakening. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, what kind of life is this? Like, honestly, like, it's just like not worth it. Like, I seriously am like such a slave to the drugs, and like spending hours at the dealer's house, like waiting for her to get the drugs, and like talking to her, like pretending like I like her and her annoying kids. Poopsie was her name. Poopsie, and like her sister that worked at Kaiser, and like listening and waiting for the pills, and like waiting, and then, whatever, and then going to cop drugs, and like all the drug dealers thought I was a cop. They said I had like a demeanor of a cop, so then I had to go get like some person to get, whatever. It was just like nonstop, like, every paycheck that I got would go, the entire paycheck would go to drugs, not just like half of it, like the entire paycheck, selling everything I own, just like, the incomprehensible demoralization, like that. I had no self-esteem, no self-worth, no nothing. And I just like, for whatever reason, that day, I went back to my dad one more time and said, I need help, and the thing is before I would say I need help, and then I'd run away. And then he'd be like, where are you? You need help? And then, I'd be like, no. And then he kind of forced me. And this time I said, I need help, and I want it. And he kind of like went away. And then I kept pursuing it. I need help. I need to go to detox. And he just kind of was like, I'm over you. And I'm like, no, please, I need it. And I kept like going after him. And he's like, you can go to detox. You can use your insurance. You can go to detox. I'm over it. And so I went into a detox for like 2 days in Northern California, in Concord. I forget the name of the place. Anyways, and it was like a psych ward. And I went in for like 2 days, and then after that I went like straight to work with my dad. He was like not gonna let me sit around. So I went straight to work, and I got a sponsor like on my 3rd day of sobriety. And I was like, because everyone's like, get a sponsor. Like, what have you not done? They're like, okay, you've been to 8 million meetings. You've been to 8 million treatment centers. You have like, 50 big books, 50 12 and 12s. You can like recite, all the BS that you've heard at every treatment center. You have every Hazelden package that they've ever made. It's like, what have you not done? I'm like, I haven't worked the program. I don't even know what the first step is, And like, okay, well, you need to get a sponsor because you obviously are, have no idea, what you're doing. So I asked this woman to be my sponsor, and that's the first thing I did is I went and met her at Soup Plantation the next day, and I was like, help, and I was having like the worst anxiety ever. And I was just like, I just need muscle relaxers. Like, I won't do the Vicodin, I won't do the heroin, I won't do the crack, I won't do the cocaine, but I really need muscle relaxers, even just like Robaxin or just like something to take the edge off. Like, I was just, there was no way I could possibly be off everything. Like, there was no way. It was not going to happen. And so I went and I met with her, and she told me, like, I promise you, if you work these steps in the order that I give them to you, and, and you show up and you do, what is asked of you, I promise you that you will be relieved of the obsession. Like, it will happen. I promise you that. That's all I can promise you. And for some reason, I, like, trusted her and believed in her. And, she wasn't like some Wonder Woman or like special woman. She wasn't like Miss AA or anything. She was just a normal, wonderful woman that for whatever reason God put in front of me, and and she was willing to reach out to me and show up for me that day. And so we started on step one. She gave me some writing, which I did right away, because when I when I finally get into something, I'm really obsessive about it. So I started doing my step one, and then as soon as I started doing the work that night, I started freaking out, and I was like, oh my God, what happens if I do the steps and they don't work? Like, that was my thing. That was like my biggest fear. Like, my first 6 months was like, what if I do the steps and they don't work? Like, the treatment centers don't work. Like, being dry doesn't work. Like, what if the steps don't work? Like, that put me in so much fear. Like, that scared me so much, because I thought, what if I'm going to live in this like purgatory hell of like not being able to get loaded? Because at this point, the getting loaded wasn't working. At this point, like, I would eat all these pills and I would like vomit them up, and then I would like eat them again, because I'd be like, oh my God, I just bought all those pills. And then, because I was like, fuck, waited hours for them, like, had to drive like an hour to get them. And then, I'd eat them again, and then my stomach wouldn't even take it. I couldn't do coke anymore. Like, all I could do was smoke things. Thank God I never learned how to shoot anything. When I tried, I didn't do it right. So, it's like, it wasn't working anymore. And I was like, what happens if that happens with AA? What happens if I try AA and it doesn't work? Like, the drugs weren't working. Like, how scary is that? And so I was really on the fence with it. Like, for my first 6 months, I was really on the fence with it, and I really did not jump into the steps like I should have. I did the writing for the first step. I did the writing for the second step. I mean, I definitely knew that my life was unmanageable. That was not a question. I had lost all my friends. All my friends were like, you're killing yourself. Like, we cannot see you kill yourself. They'd already like gone to my parents, gone to like everyone they knew, and had like interventions, like my roommates, everyone. I mean, that was not a problem. In the courts, I mean, everything. It was, I was like wasting away. That was not a problem admitting that. But I mean, the God thing really scared me too. It's like, why should I believe that there's anything that's going to help me, or, why should I trust anyone? Like, no one's ever really shown up for me before, in my opinion. Like, that's what I had thought. I had thought that, like, I'd pretty much done everything for myself in my life. Like, I'd created my own destiny, whether it be shitty, which it was, but it was mine. I had kind of done it myself. So why would I believe that, like, anyone else was going to just start taking care of me, or anything else was going to start looking over me out of nowhere? Like, what was that about? So that whole thing was just like really freaking me. I didn't get that. And then my first sponsor said to me, well, I have a God of my understanding, and as long as you believe in me, you can believe in my God. Or if you believe that my God works for me, then that will work for you for now. She was like really like she was like momly like that. I was like, okay, and because my mom, like, God bless her, like, she's a great person. She's not like real mom, she's not like real like mom like. So I was like, cool, whatever, and so that worked for me. I was like, okay, well, her God works for her, so I'll just use her God for now, because she's obviously helping me, and so we continued on very slowly, and I really just tried to do my best with the 4-step. I really sat on that for like probably about 2 months. And it wasn't because I wasn't mad at other people. I had no problem writing my resentments. I was like pissed at the world. I was like, this person sucks, da 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 da. It was because I couldn't see my part in things. And even when she would be like showing me, like, well, maybe, this happened, and maybe, maybe he did this because you did that, or whatever. I was like, no. No. I did not deserve that DUI, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like, I was so, like, into that. Like, everyone, you know, it's like everyone had wronged me. I didn't deserve anything wrong to me. And that, I mean, that really took, like, till I had a year of sobriety for me to actually start seeing my part in things. Like, it was really slow sobriety for me, big time. I moved at 7 months of sobriety. I was working with my family. My family has a family business in Northern California, and I could not be in that anymore because my parents, I love them to death, but you know, I needed to be on my own and I needed to do my own thing. So I packed up my car and I came down and I moved into Herbert House, sober living right over here. And I stayed there. I had like 6 or 7 months sobriety and I stayed there for like 3 months. And it was like the best decision of my life that I could have ever done for myself. And as I came down, I went to Herbert House. It was an amazing experience. And people there were fabulous. And I think that I got a lot out of it because I was in the right headspace for the first time, and I was really like wanting to get a lot out of the program. And we came here every morning. I think it was like 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. We came to the meetings here, and then we came to the meetings at night. And I remember I got, there was a lady named Devora that used to come when I was in the treatment center for a year before, like years before, like in 02 or whatever. And she would come up to the treatment center. I mean, it was in the middle of nowhere. It was like up Canaan-Doom, like over halfway to Agora, halfway to Malibu, like way up Canaan-Doom Road. And she would drive up every Wednesday and like have a meeting there. And she was like so helpful. And I saw her at a meeting and I was like, will you be my sponsor? Because I obviously need a new sponsor and I hadn't gone through all the steps. And I was like starting to get really bad anxiety and freak out. And so I ran into her and she's like, absolutely. And so I had to start over again. So we started at step 1 and I just got right on it. I mean, we went through all the steps like really fast. And I probably went through them in like 3 months, like just boom, 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 because there was like no pausing with her. And I needed it. Like I was starting to get like I was when I was in there for a year. I was starting to get really agitated and really doubtful and just like really hard on myself and feeling really shitty. And pardon me. And so I finished all the steps right before I got a year. And long story short, so I met 3 other girls that I was in Herbert House with, and they're like, we ended up moving out together, all 4 of us girls. They're like, don't do it, because we all had like less than, we had like 6 or 7 months of sobriety. There was like 4 of us, or like I had 9 months at that point, and they're like, don't move out together. It's like the worst thing. Everyone's gonna relapse together, and da 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 da. And we're all still sober. It's like almost 5 years later, and which is like never. Which is like a miracle, you know. So anyways, and I got my first commitment at the Kelton meeting as the literature person. And I mean, I'm terrible. Like I would leave the books every week. I'd leave the books in my car, leave the books at the meeting. And then at Federal, I got the banners. I would leave them at the school every week. I'd get in my car and I'd be like, was I supposed to do something? I mean, that's how I am. Like, I'm so, like, I'm forgetful. And I'm like, shit. And people be, like, calling me on my phone or texting me, like, the banners. I'll be like, oh, God, I'm so hard on myself. And I'm like, fucking idiot. You know, and I'd be like, God, I can't believe people actually give me a commitment. You know, like, what a moron I am. And then, so anyway, so back up. So I was in Herbert House, and I ended up, I'm like, I need a job. So I got my first job in sobriety. 5 minutes, okay. I got my first job in sobriety was, I went and there was a car dealership, and anyway, so I applied at the car dealership, and mind you, I have a breathalyzer on my car, and three DUIs, and my driver's license actually says my DMV printout says menace to society or menace to something. It has menace on it. So, yeah, it's really something to brag about. My Progressive loves that one, believe me, Progressive Direct. By the way, Progressive Direct has great insurance rates. Anyways, if you have a bad driving record. So I checked them all out. Anyways, so I went and I applied to the dealership, and I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to get a job. They're never going to hire me. They're going to do background checks. Oh my God. So anyways, long story short, I totally went and I was honest with them. I was like, I have DUIs. I have a breathalyzer on my car. Da, da, da. They hired me. And they gave me a key to a lockbox to 300 Subarus. I was like, oh my God, I could totally steal all these cars right now and sell them. but I won't. No. And it was great. And they're like, you just can't drive off the lot. They're like, let the customer drive the car off the lot. They like trusted the random customer more than me. I was like, okay. But it was awesome. It was perfect. And it was great, and I was like, but it was so funny. I was like stressing out for 2 weeks, and I had to go in and get my live scans at the sheriff's place. I was like, oh my god, they're gonna not let me have live scans, whatever that is for. And I was like nervous, and they did. They let me have they let me do the live scan prints. And it's like everything has happened like that. It's like everything that I thought I couldn't do. My next job, I was working for a chiropractor. I thought he was not gonna hire me. He's gonna do background and see that, one of them was a felony. I was like, there's no way he's gonna hire me. And then my next job, he did like a full-on background check. I was like, oh God. It's like every job I go into, I'm like, oh no, they're gonna see all this stuff. They're never gonna hire me. And it's okay. And then I just left a job. I was actually fired from my job. Was it 1, 2, 3? A little over 3.5 months ago. I had a really bad year. And I was fired from my job like 3.5 months ago. My boss accused me. I worked for a surgeon. I worked for a different surgeon. He accused me of stealing drugs from the operating room, like Xanax or something. He was like, we have like 3 Xanax missing from the operating room. I was like, bitch, if I was going to steal the Xanax, I would be, first of all, be delauded, okay? And it would not be pills and it would not be 3, okay? Please. But I didn't say that. He's like, do you have anything to say to me? And I was like, no, I don't. I was like, thank you very much for the opportunity to work for you. And I just like walked out and I was like, it's all good. And then I just like applied for jobs and it was all good. It was like, that's obviously God wants me to go somewhere else and it's totally okay, And it's like every experience that we have like that, it's like, it's like something else is meant to happen. My mom got diagnosed with cancer when I had 1 year of sobriety. And like we fight like this. And it's like I totally like went and showed up for her surgeries up north at Stanford and like tried to be the best daughter I could be. My parents are going through divorce. It's gnarly. Like I got married in sobriety. I just got my papers back today. It was really gnarly. My husband could not stay sober, like crazy using, like it was just really, really bad. It was a really bad experience over the last year. It was really, if anyone has a spouse in here that's using and drinking, I really feel bad for you because I know and I've been there. It's fucking gnarly. And I just, he could not do it. He could not stay sober. And we've been going through it for like 6 months now. And I had to get the marriage annulled. I couldn't do it. And I just found out today that it went through, it got annulled, which is, it's sad. At the same time, it's sad, but at the same time, it's like it needed to happen. Maybe this will save him. Maybe that'll be a really good wake-up call for him. Because it's like he got violent. It's like they get crazy. And it's sad. And but it's like in sobriety, it's like we can do anything. We can walk through anything. It's like everyone has been through whatever we have to walk through. It's like we're never alone. It's like everyone in this room, maybe not everyone, but I mean, there's someone else that has been through it. Like my grandmother just passed away. God, in the past year, it's like everything. My grandmother just passed away. She had 32 years of sobriety. She was like always around when I was growing up, and it was so hard to see her, and I just missed her. Like I was in the airport in Burbank, right when she passed away. And I'm sorry. You guys are here to love me, And she's here in spirit. And that could be any one of us, passing away, but we're not right here today to live. And to share the message that we can all do it, I mean, honestly, I could not go an hour without drinking or using, and we're all the same. We all have the same feelings. We all love. We all want to be loved, and we don't need to pick up that drink or drug today. It's like we can all reach out to another person and let them know we love them and care. And that we want to live. Like, that's all we want. We want to live, and we want to choose life today. And I just want to say thank you so much, Sean, for asking me to speak. It's such an honor and a privilege to speak at any meeting of AA, and you guys are such a wonderful crowd for listening to me. Thank you.